Dear Leo souls, radiant and bold as the midday sun, if you're watching this, it is not a coincidence. You didn't stumble here by accident, you were guided. And in the first few seconds of this video, let me say this loud and clear. This is not just a horoscope reading, it's a cosmic warning. Tomorrow could change everything. And what you choose to walk away from or step into may determine whether a miracle reaches your life or slips quietly away. There is a place, a situation, a person familiar, maybe even comforting, that's calling you back. But make no mistake, Leo. That call is not rooted in love. It's rooted in fear, attachment, control. And if you answer it, if you return to where you've already outgrown, you may unknowingly block the very breakthrough you've been manifesting. Have you noticed the timing of all this? The strange dream, the old contact reaching out, the invitation that just happened to show up? Pause. Reflect. Because something within you already knew this was coming. Your intuition has been whispering. Your body has been signaling. Your soul has been sending smoke signals through restlessness and gut feelings. This moment right here, right now, is your sign to pay attention. Leo, your heart is noble. You've stayed silent to protect the peace. You've offered love even while bleeding. You've kept showing up for people who wouldn't show up for you. But the universe is saying something different now. You are not here to be drained. You are here to rise. And rising requires discernment. I want to take a moment to thank you deeply and sincerely for being here. For every like, every comment, every subscription, you bring energy into this sacred space. You help Eternal Mindfulness continue sharing these transformational messages with those who need them most. Your presence matters. It shapes this community. It keeps it alive. And I say this with love, Leo, you'll want to stay with me until the very last moment of this message. Because what the universe is revealing today is powerful. It's protective. And if you heed it, it could save you from repeating cycles that were never meant to follow you into your future. So let me ask you this: what guided you here today? Was it a pull you couldn't explain? A lingering doubt? A sign you saw this morning that you haven't been able to shake? You are not imagining things. There is wisdom trying to reach you, and you've been brave enough to listen. If you've ever felt your intuition speak before, if something in your body or soul has ever said, "Don't go," leave a comment below that says, "I trust my inner voice." That's how we anchor this moment together. That's how we align your energy with what is true, what is forward, what is sacred. Now breathe with me. Let your awareness settle. Because what I'm about to share could be the line between repeating an old story and finally writing a new one. Let's begin. And now, dear Leo, as we move deeper into this journey together, I want you to breathe gently and stay present with me. Because what comes next is not just a prediction, it is a reflection. A reflection of the emotional crossroads that many of us, especially those with hearts as vast and warm as yours, will recognize all too well. Sometimes, the invitation doesn't look like a trap. It comes dressed in kindness, nostalgia, or a familiar tone of voice you once found comforting. Perhaps it's a text that says, "Can we talk?" Maybe it's a sudden reappearance from someone who once meant the world. It could be a friend, a past lover, even a family connection, the kind of relationship that still echoes in your memory. At first glance, nothing seems wrong. They may sound sincere. They may even cry. They might say the words you longed to hear back when you were still bleeding in silence. But here's the truth that only the heart knows when it's truly ready. Not all kindness is love, and not all apologies are healing. There is a subtle line between genuine connection and emotional control, and it is your intuition, not logic, that knows the difference. You see, what you're facing isn't just a person from the past. You're facing a pattern, a vibration that once bound you in ways you didn't have words for. That invitation is more than an event. It's a test of your evolution. The cards that speak today, the Moon and the Five of Swords, are not here to frighten you, but to reveal the hidden currents. The Moon calls forth illusion, the half-light of confusion where intentions are cloaked and truths distorted. The Five of Swords whispers of silent battles, manipulations, and wins that come at the cost of someone's dignity, often your own. This is the energy of psychological tension, of emotional push and pull masked as affection. And that's why it feels familiar. Because it is. You've lived through it before. And now you're being asked, gently but firmly, not to repeat it. When you step into an old room, you unconsciously become the version of yourself that once lived there. You speak more softly, you second-guess your power, you carry yourself smaller, not because you're weak, but because your soul remembers. And that's what makes this moment sacred. It's not about rejecting a person. It's about recognizing that the version of you who used to tolerate emotional half-truths no longer exists. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to defend your distance. You simply need to recognize that your evolution deserves protection. There is a wisdom passed down quietly through generations, a way of being that teaches us to hold stillness as strength. To know that walking away is not absence, it is presence with yourself. That sometimes, the most profound form of compassion is saying no without anger, turning away without guilt. There is no need to rush to judgment, no need to demonize anyone. Simply recognize, you are not the healer of someone else's unhealed story, especially if that healing costs you your peace. And maybe the hardest part is that you still care. You still feel that tug inside your chest, the soft pull of empathy. But your compassion is no longer currency to be spent on keeping broken systems alive. You're allowed to step back without bitterness. You're allowed to choose quiet over chaos. You're allowed to prioritize the path ahead instead of making peace with the past. So when that message arrives, when that invite appears, pause. Not out of fear, but from clarity. Feel what your body tells you. Honor what your inner knowing already whispered long ago. This time, Leo, you do not need to return. This time, you hold the door and you choose not to walk through it. Leo, the path you're walking right now isn't just about choices, it's about perception. And that perception doesn't always come from your thoughts. It often arises from something more primal, more trustworthy, and far more ancient than logic, your intuition. The truth is, your body often knows what your mind is still trying to reason with. That flutter in your stomach, the tightness in your chest, the sudden heaviness behind your eyes, or even the restlessness that keeps you awake at night, these are not coincidences or random discomforts. These are messages. Clear, subtle, and deeply honest. Your body speaks in feelings when your spirit cannot yet speak in words. Just as a lion in the wild doesn't wait for proof of danger to act, you too are built with instincts that protect, preserve, and guide. A lion senses before it sees. It reacts not from fear but from alignment with its environment. That same wisdom lives in you. When your body reacts before your mind has caught up, that is not anxiety, it is awareness. It is a finely tuned instrument trying to alert you to what is no longer aligned with your highest peace. You may find yourself rationalizing these sensations. Maybe I'm overthinking. It's probably nothing. I don't want to seem dramatic. But let me remind you, denying your instincts does not make you stronger, it simply makes your path more difficult. The subtle discomfort you feel is a signal, not a flaw. And the more you ignore it, the louder it becomes, not to punish you, but to protect you. You're not here to silence your body's wisdom. You're here to learn how to honor it. There is a quiet discipline in learning to pause and listen without needing to explain. One way to strengthen this practice is to create intentional space in your daily life. A few minutes of quiet each evening, eyes closed, breath steady, simply scanning your body from head to toe can reveal more truth than a full day of mental analysis. Notice where you feel tight, where you feel hollow, where something contracts. That is where your awareness is needed most. You don't have to fix it. You just need to witness it with gentle presence. Writing, too, is a form of release. When you give your inner voice a space on the page, it no longer has to scream through your nervous system. Keep a journal, even if it's only a few lines a day. Ask yourself simple questions. What am I feeling right now? What part of me feels unseen? Where am I holding tension that doesn't belong to me? Sometimes clarity isn't about gaining new answers, it's about finally hearing the ones you've been carrying all along. To support your emotional and energetic clarity, surround yourself with colors that nourish and ground you. Deep ocean blue helps quiet the overstimulated nervous system, while soft ivory white offers a sense of mental spaciousness like a fresh breath in a cluttered room. These colors are not magical cures, but they do serve as visual reminders of your intention, to return to yourself with gentleness and strength. And if you're feeling something now, a sensation you can't quite name, an inner pull, or a quiet resistance to something or someone, trust that it's there for a reason. You don't have to act on it immediately, but don't dismiss it. Let it guide you, not through fear, but through discernment. If you've ever felt something without being able to explain it, if your body has ever tried to tell you the truth before your mind was ready to listen, I invite you to share it in the comments below. Just naming it can be the beginning of freedom. What is your intuition trying to show you? What have you been feeling lately that you haven't said out loud? You don't need permission to trust yourself, Leo. You just need a moment of stillness to realize you already do. Leo, you've always been known for your fire, not the kind that burns recklessly, but the kind that illuminates and protects. But here's the truth few talk about: real power isn't always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes, power is found not in roaring back, but in choosing not to engage at all. And that is the essence of this moment for you, a moment of decisive clarity, of choosing not because you owe an explanation, but because your peace has become your new priority. We've been conditioned to believe that we owe people closure, that walking away requires a long justification or a tidy farewell. But so often, that need to explain, to make others comfortable with our choices, comes from old wounds, the part of us that learned long ago that love must be earned, that silence means rejection, or that drawing a boundary is somehow selfish. But the truth is this: saying no is not rejection. It is redirection toward alignment, toward truth, toward freedom. You may feel the pull right now. That small voice inside saying, maybe I should just go just one last time. Maybe it feels polite. Maybe it feels like the grown-up thing to do. But Leo, you've already done the hard part. You've evolved beyond the need to justify your growth. And as the Chariot appears in the cards, it's not here as a challenge, it's here as a confirmation. You are ready to move forward, deliberately, without looking back. The Chariot speaks to momentum, but not the chaotic kind. This is focused direction, the movement of someone who has learned to steer their energy. And to steer well, you must know when to hold still, when to let go, and when to refuse the distractions that dress up as opportunities. Choosing yourself in this way is not abandonment. It is presence. Deep, honest, self-aligned presence. There is a concept passed down through those who observe life closely that silence, when rooted in clarity, is more powerful than 1,000 explanations. It's not about ignoring or punishing others, it's about no longer betraying your own knowing just to maintain appearances. True integrity isn't proven through words, it's lived through choices. And sometimes, the boldest choice is the one you don't announce at all. You do not need to go to that place. You do not need to hear the same apologies reshaped into new sentences. You do not need to sit in front of someone just to reassure them you've moved on. The cycle ends when you no longer respond to the loop. And you don't need their understanding to validate your evolution. You only need to understand yourself. This kind of quiet decisiveness comes from within, not as rebellion, but as respect. It's a form of self-regard that recognizes, I can care deeply and still walk away. You're not closing the door with bitterness. You're simply choosing not to step through it again. And that is not cold. That is clarity. When your direction becomes more important than your history, you'll find that saying no doesn't weaken you, it actually builds something new inside of you. Something stable. Something real. So if part of you still wonders whether it's okay to simply not show up, let me offer you this. Your absence in a place that once harmed you is your declaration that you've outgrown survival and are ready to live. There's no need to roar, Leo. The whole forest already knows you're rising. When you choose not to return to what once drained you, Leo, you're not just walking away, you're creating space. And space is where all transformation begins. It's easy to think that saying no is about resistance, about pushing something away. But in reality, that firm and quiet no is an invitation. It tells life, I am ready. I am open. I am available for what aligns. This is where your journey begins to unfold, not because you force it to, but because you've stopped cluttering the path with what no longer resonates. Every time you decline something that used to hold power over you, whether that's a person, a place, a habit, or a pattern, you're not just making a decision. You're rewriting the story of your worth. And the universe, much like the rhythm of the natural world, responds not to words, but to energy. When you gently shut the door on what you've outgrown, you send out a quiet but powerful frequency that says, I trust there's more ahead, even if I can't see it yet. And that vibration has a way of attracting the right things at the right time, not because you chased them, but because you made room for them. This is what the law of attraction really asks of you, not to manifest from desperation, but to align through discernment. The moment you choose peace over performance, clarity over confusion, solitude over noise, you become magnetic to miracles. Not just surface-level luck, but deeply rooted blessings that nourish your life from the inside out. That job that values your presence, not just your productivity. That love that doesn't require you to shrink in order to be held. That calm that finally quiets the noise inside your chest, not because life stopped being chaotic, but because you're no longer choosing what throws you off center. The star and the Ace of Pentacles appearing together is no coincidence. The star speaks of healing, of hope that returns after a long storm, of a future that finally feels like it belongs to you. And the Ace of Pentacles is the seed of something tangible, a fresh start in your material world, the kind that leads to real, grounded change. It's the interview email, the unexpected opportunity, the message that says, "You've been chosen." But here's the key, that message only finds you when you're no longer stuck trying to fix what was never yours to repair. One small practice can support this shift in you. Take a quiet moment, maybe tonight, and write 3 simple lines. Start with, "I release," and name what you're letting go of. Then, "I choose," and speak into the energy you want to carry forward. Finally, "I trust," and allow yourself to name the kind of life you're ready to welcome. These words are more than affirmations. They are declarations. They're your way of stepping into alignment, not just with desire, but with direction. If you've ever made a decision to walk away from something, even if it hurt, even if it made no sense to anyone else, and later found your life shifting in ways you didn't expect, I invite you to share your story below. There is power in testimony. You never know who might read your words and feel brave enough to do the same. The choice not to go isn't an absence. It's a presence with yourself, with your truth, and with everything that is finally ready to meet you where you are, not where you used to be. And that, Leo, is the beginning of magic. Silence, Leo, is not the absence of power, it is the refinement of it. After the choice not to go, not to return to the place or person that once held your energy captive, comes another layer of clarity, the realization that you do not owe anyone an explanation for your growth. This is where your frequency shifts. This is where you begin to vibrate at a different rhythm, one that no longer aligns with the echo chambers of your past. And sometimes, the people or places you've moved beyond simply stop hearing you, not because you've disappeared, but because you've risen. There's a quiet dignity in not responding, in choosing stillness over justification, in allowing your actions to speak where words once struggled to find their way. You don't need to text back. You don't need to clarify why you're not showing up. You don't need to rehearse lines in your head to make someone else feel comfortable with your absence. Your silence is not passive. It is a sacred stance, a quiet returning to yourself without the need for outside validation. Think of it this way: when a musical instrument is finely tuned to a higher pitch, it no longer harmonizes with those that remain out of tune. They may still try to play the same song, but it will feel discordant. That's what happens when you elevate. The conversations you used to entertain, the relationships you used to hold on to, even the worries that used to loop in your mind, they no longer make sense in this new atmosphere. And that shift can feel strange at first. You may wonder if you're being distant or cold. But what's really happening is this: you are learning how to protect your peace without performance. This kind of inner silence is not emptiness. It is spaciousness. It is the kind of presence that allows you to hear your own breath, to notice your own needs, to rest in your own rhythm. There's a simple teaching that reminds us, when the mind is quiet, the heart speaks clearly. And in that stillness, you begin to hear the truth beneath all the noise that your life was never meant to be a series of reactions. It was meant to be a conscious unfolding. A movement that emerges from deep listening, not social obligation. By not engaging with what once pulled you into cycles of explanation or guilt, you're not abandoning anything. You're dissolving an outdated agreement, the unspoken rule that said you had to overextend just to be understood. And when you dissolve that, you don't just liberate yourself. You become a signal for others who are still caught in those dynamics, still afraid to say no, still tethered to what once seemed unbreakable. Your quiet shift becomes a ripple that reaches further than you know. And maybe the most beautiful part is this: when you honor your evolution without trying to make it palatable, you give others permission to do the same. You become the quiet example. Not loud, not grand, but grounded. The one who changed, not to prove anything, but because it was time. So, Leo, if the urge to explain yourself rises, pause. Notice it. Breathe through it. Then remember you've already said everything by how you've chosen to live. You've already spoken through the clarity of your steps. And that, in itself, is more than enough. Your silence doesn't mean absence. It means presence with truth, with grace, and with the unshakable knowledge that you are no longer where you used to be. And that's exactly as it should be. And now, Leo, as we come to the end of this sacred space we've shared together, I want you to take one more slow breath with me, deep, intentional, steady. Because what we've explored today is more than just guidance for tomorrow. It is a mirror. A mirror that reflects who you've become, and who you are finally giving yourself permission to be. The decision not to go, not to return, not to reopen a door you've already closed, it may seem small from the outside. But we both know it's not. It's not just a no to a place, a person, or a moment in time. It's a yes to everything your future is quietly trying to give you. What looks like standing still is, in truth, one of the most powerful movements you'll ever make, the movement of choosing peace over habit, presence over pressure, and alignment over approval. Let me remind you, you are not missing out. You are stepping up. You are not being selfish. You are being sovereign. You are not abandoning anyone. You are returning home to yourself, to your wisdom, to your path. There is no need to fight for what is already meant for you. The right opportunities, the right love, the right growth, they arrive not because you chase them, not because you bend yourself into shapes to be accepted, but because you chose yourself first. That choice ripples outward in ways you may not see yet, but I promise you this: something beautiful is unfolding just beyond what you can currently imagine. So ask yourself gently, what are you still holding onto out of guilt, habit, or fear? Where are you still explaining your truth when silence is enough? Who would you become if you stopped revisiting what you've already outgrown? These are not questions meant to pressure you, they are invitations. Invitations to walk forward with less weight, more clarity, and full trust that the universe responds when you do. And if even a small part of you today felt recognized, felt seen, felt braver just by listening, I want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to pause and reflect instead of rushing through your own story. Thank you for every like, every comment, every moment you spend growing with us here at Eternal Mindfulness. You are not alone in this. Every soul that gathers here adds light to the path, not just for themselves, but for each other. If this message spoke to something in you, even in a whisper, I invite you to anchor it with a comment below. Let this space be your reflection, your journal, your quiet yes to change. You can simply write, I am not going back. I choose the light. Or share your own affirmation, one that will remind you, days or weeks from now, that this was the moment you chose to move differently. And if this video brought you a moment of clarity, peace, or strength, consider sharing it with someone who might be walking through a similar threshold. Like, subscribe, and stay connected with us here at Eternal Mindfulness, where each message is a step deeper into your own unfolding. Because this journey of healing, of choosing, of becoming is not just about changing your future. It's about remembering that you've always had the power to begin again. And now, Leo, you have. You've chosen yourself. And that choice is the beginning of everything.